if I'm not mistaken, we want to hear about Amalek, right? Let's hear some issues about Amalek. I think there's some chidushim here that we're going to see in the sources. The first thing, sorry, it's my yes. I guess there's someone around here who wants to join us, but I can't take that right now. So the first source I have here is the brisker diuk in the Rambam. That was what? No, it's okay. No, it's fine. It's not necessary. It's from my wife. There's a brisker diuk about who exactly Amalek is. Rabbi Soloveitchik gave one of his Lefifim drushes, where he says that he has a Kabbalah from Reb Chaim Brisker. It was totally Litvak. He was a Rosh Hashiva in Volozhin, as a matter of fact. So he has a tradition that the Germans are 100%. They're like the Amalek today. How does he know this? Have you heard this diuk? Wow. It says like this: the Amalek is still around. If you look in the Rambam, the uncensored Rambam, Hilchos Malachim Perek Hey talks about the mitzvah of Hachromas Kananim. And it says here, mitzvah say lachrim shiva amimim. Get rid of the Kananim. It's a mitzvah to do so. And the Rambam adds in it's halacha uchvar avidu v'avad zichram. Technically speaking, you can't keep this mitzvah of getting rid of the Amalek of the Kananim. Why? No more Kananim around. Who are the Kananim? Kananim were a distinct group of people who lived in Eretz. No, the Canaanites, the Kananim. Kanani, Prizi, Chivi, it says. Canaan was the second generation from Noah. Canaan was a son of Cham. It says Bnei Cham, Cush, Umitzrayim, Ufut, and Canaan. The four sons of Cham. And it says Canaan, Yolad, Sidon, Bechorov, Eschez, Prizi, Yevusi, all these other groups. The Hittites were a great nation that were mostly in what's nowadays Turkey, but they also had a presence in Eretz Yisrael. So the Canaanim started there. And it's a mitzvah to take over Eretz Yisrael and get rid of the Canaanim. Lachrimam. And the Rambam says, Kvar avidu v'avad zichram. There's no more Canaanim around. Can't do this mitzvah. Rambam continues, mitzvah to say, la'abed zera Amalek. We also have to get rid of the zera Amalek. And the Rambam concludes this halacha without telling us, and by the way, it doesn't say Kvar avdu v'avad zichram.
So how much is it?
Hold on. But I'm just telling you what the brisker diuk is. We're going to see the Sefer Mitzvahs, we're going to see more Nevuchim, we're going to see the Rambam al Pia Rambam. So this is a diuk that Rabbi Soloveitchik made famous because he gave a very public speech in Yiddish in the 1950s where he said this, and it's been printed in a book, and those who know his Torah say it. It's a classic brisker idea that somehow there are no more Canaanim. The Rambam said that, but the Rambam is implying by silence, saying that perhaps there are Amalekim around even nowadays. There is Amalek around. So that's why I wrote in that line, Mikansha Amalek Adayin Kayom, unlike the Canaanim. That's the brisker diuk. If you look at Sefer Shmuel, by the way, we just read the Haftarah of Zachor, Parshas Milchemes Amalek, Shel Hashem Agag Yisur Nefredes from Nismeches. What does that mean? Nefredes and Nismeches. What's the difference? How do you know when it's just Mishkan or Mishkan? We pronounce a kamitz is different than a patach. And a lot of words like a korban and korban. What's the difference between korban and korban? If you have a Baal Kriya, you will also know today's laning. When is it ace and when it's s? So when it's its own word with its own trup, it's ace. Doesn't matter if it's a mafsik or a mishares. Its own trup, it's ace. When it's connected with the makif to the next word, it's s. Same thing with kol. Is it a cholam or a kamitz? So the similar to smichus is that when you have a korban, stam korban, it's with a kamitz. Korban something or other, korban pesach, patach. Okay, asham with kamitz, asham gezela with patach, and the chatach patach at the beginning. So mishkan is also like this: mishkan with a kamitz, mishkan ha'edus with a patach. Say it easier. That's a smichus, and other words in Hebrew have a smichus form. The name Agag seems to be unlike any other proper noun. When you have a person's name in Tanakh, like Nason, it's with a kamitz. Asaf is with the kamitz. Or if you have Yeho Nason, it's also with the kamitz. However, it does not become a smichus. You don't reduce it. Yeho Nason of something or other does not become with a patach. Okay? It's never Yeho Nason. The name Agag behaves totally differently. It's with the kamitz. And when it says Agag Melech Amalek, it's with a patach. Implying that Agag is not his name. Grammatically in Hebrew, Agag is not his name. Instead, it's a title. Even Paro and Avimelech, we know all the kings of Egypt are called Paro. All the kings of the Philistines are called Avimelech. That seems to be a name they're all given, just like in France. Every king was called what? Louis. So they start putting numbers. And in England, they're running out of names for their kings. They now have a third Charles. They had two Charleses. Now they're up to a third, and they're going to be up to a fifth William soon. So they're running out of names. So this Agag apparently is not even a name they gave their kings. It is a descriptive term. Okay, and if you pronounce Hebrew properly, like Tiberian Hebrew, in the olden days, the Gimel was pronounced, the Gimel without a dot was pronounced similar to the way they pronounce a resh nowadays, the sound. So this is Agag. Okay, it's like saying the Ichsa. Okay, the Shkatz. So that's what it seems to be his name. So Mashma She'ein Prati Ela Toar. It's a descriptive term. Okay, which is significant coming up. So Rabbi Rabinovich dealt with this brisker diuk. Who is Rabbi Rabinovich? He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Ma'ale Adumim, and previously in England and in Toronto. He is expert on the Rambam. He passed away just a few years ago during the Corona lockdowns. Rabbi Rabinovich studies a lot of Rambam and put out his own parish on the Rambam called the Apshuta. He didn't finish it. Have you heard of Rabbi Rabinovich? Thank God, I got to speak to him. So he's a real into Torah Eretz Yisrael. He's American born. He was also a mathematician. So Rabbi Rabinovich said, I remember him telling me this personally also, it's unfortunately the diuk doesn't fit with the Rambam. Okay, this diuk in the Rambam doesn't fit with the Rambam. I have here the next source is the Rambam Sefer Mitzvos, which is Rav Kapach's translation. Rav Kapach was a Yemenite Rav from a long line of Rabbanim, and he lived in Eretz Yisrael. He passed away, I think, just 10 years ago or something like that, recently. Maybe before I moved to Eretz Yisrael. So that's Rav Kapach. And Rav Kapach has in the Sefer Mitzvahs the positive commandment number 188, which spells Kapach in Hebrew. Kapach is an Arabic name, so there's an aleph added, but that's how you remember the siman. It says you're getting in there. So I put on the source sheet. It says Hatzivui shnitz tavinu laachris zera Amalek bilvad mikol sha'ar zera Esau. Okay, the mitzvah to get rid of Amalek. There's no diuk here. Get a mitzvah of Amalek is a specific group among zera Esau, because Esau had, just like all the other people connected to Avraham Avinu, turns out he has 12 tribes descended from Esau. 13 if you count Amalek, but Amalek's a separate group. Just like Yoktan and Nachor and Yishmael also all have 12 descendants who make their own tribes, just like Am Yisrael, because the bracha could have been fulfilled through them, but they're rejected. So too Esau. Esau has an Amalek. It's like the Shevet. Amalek is Lahavdil, the Shevet Levi of the Bnei Esau. Because Levi is set aside from Am Yisrael, so then you count the 12 a different way. So too Amalek, Zerah Esau. You have 12, you count out Amalek so you can get to 12 some other way. So Amalek, it's very specific here. There's no room for the diuk of the Rambam, of the briskers, in this formulation of the Rambam, because it's very specific. It's not someone else who could be Amalek. And the same thing in Mor Nevuchim over here, the Rambam explains this diuk. Mor Nevuchim was written after the Mishnah Torah. The Sefer Mitzvah was written before the Mishnah Torah. Mor Nevuchim was after. What do they both have in common? Sefer Mitzvahs and Mor Nevuchim were written in Arabic. Also, they're not such brisker texts. They here studying Mor Nevuchim. It's not something they even do. Even in modern Orthodox high school, they're not exactly studying Mor Nevuchim. I wasn't taught Mor Nevuchim. You have to take some time after you study Kuzari and after you finish Chavos Avavis. Maybe you should study a little bit of Mor Nevuchim. Okay, just a recommendation. And if you know Arabic, that'd be the best way to do it. So it says here that he highlights this thing. If this is Mor Nevuchim, the third part, the 50th chapter. He says, "Dasha kol sipur shetimtza muzkar batorah hulasoeles echreiches batorah." Any story you have in the Torah must be for a toeles. There's a certain point. Why? There's a lot of history that's skipped over. Avraham Avinu, we have just a few stories about him. Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't know a lot about Moshe Rabbeinu that's in the Torah. You have to read Midrashim, because the Torah only includes that which is toeles, but if it is included, it's toeles. So the Rambam gives a few examples of what he believed. Of course, starting with the Ramban, there are those who disagree with what the Rambam's point is. But the Rambam, notwithstanding, we want to see what the Rambam felt. The Rambam says here, if you go to the second page, Aval Teur Shiftei B'nei Seir V'Yuchlusam Ha'ishi, says B'nei Seir, Eila B'nei Seir Achori, right? Right after B'nei Esau. What do we care about B'nei Seir Achori? They're basically a Canaanite group. They lived in the land of Edom, Eretz Seir. Why do we need to hear so much about them? We don't have so much details about, we do have the early generations of Canaanim, but the Canaanim from Avraham Avinu's time, they don't tell us who honor Eshkol and Mamre, good Canaanim, good Amorim, who are they descended from? But Bnei Seir Achori, a lot of details there. Who biglal mitzvah achas? The whole point of this part, this the end of Vayishlach. It's for one mitzvah. V'hi shehu yisaleh tziva lahashmid zera Amalek bilvad. God told us get rid of zera Amalek. The important word in Arabic, it's also there bilvad. Only get rid of zera Amalek. The Amalek who ben Eliphaz mitimna achos lotan. Amalek is very specific. Don't say there's two Amaleks among Bnei Esav. No. Amalek, son of Eliphaz, from his wife Timnah, who is the daughter, who is the sister of Lotan, the Seirite. Okay, Lotan the Chori. Aval Yeser b'nei Esav lo tziva l'horgam. Yeser b'nei Esav, you're not supposed to kill them. As a matter of fact, the Torah describes b'nei Esav with an interesting term. What is the interesting term? In like 5 places. Nafkamin halacha. B'nei Esav are considered what? Brothers. Ki achichahu. Okay, achenu b'nei Esav. The rest of b'nei Esav have special treatment among Goyim, more than other Goyim do, interestingly enough. But Bnei Amalek, no. If we would have killed them all, the Rambam says. So these are 2 sources from the Rambam himself. The Rambam says unmistakably the mitzvah to get rid of Amalek applies very specifically to Amalek, Bnei Amalek, and no one else. Even I guess the Amalek, they accept Gerim. Is there such a thing as Gerus among the Goyim? No. Every Goy has Yichus to his Mishpacha. There's 2 nations in the Torah. Rav Shechter says this. There's Klal Yisrael and there's Klal Goyim. Kahal Goyim. Among Klal Yisrael, there's Mishpachos. That includes us. There's Mishpachos. Having a last name is a very Jewish thing. And among Goyim, there's Mishpachos. There's Mishpachas Knani. There's Amaleki. There's Yevonim. There's Mitzrim. That's their family. You can't change their family. You can't change who your father is. Among Goyim, that is. Okay, so there's no room here. Machon Shilo Rambam, Amalek hu Amalek vein zulaso. Makes sense? So there is no diuk here. This basically breaks apart the brisker diuk that you have. So if you have people say that Pimusser maybe, saying the Rav gave a shiur about this, he mentions this brisker idea that you say, well, why Parshas Zachor? If you have a kasha on the Rambam, if you learn the diuk of the Rambam like briskers, I understand Parshas Zachor. It reminds us every year, get rid of Amalek. But if you say like the Rambam just told us twice, there is no more Amalek. You know, this Amalek is a very specific group. You have to know exactly who. I don't know, how are we going to tell who they are? No, it's a very difficult mitzvah to keep. So what's the point of reading Parshas Zachor even on a regular basis? Why are we reading Zachor? Okay, so he continues here. I want to also say that the Rambam, if we want to answer, why did the Rambam mention there's no more, he mentions no more Canaanim. Why did he mention Amalekim? The Rambam previously said Yisuri Bia. The Isuri Bia comes before Hilchos Malachim. Hilchos Malachim is mamish, the very end of the Mishnah Torah. How long did it take the Rambam to write Mishnah Torah? He writes about, he started writing in a certain year. I forget the exact cheshbon. I think it took him over the course of 3 years or something like that. At least 3 years for the Rambam to write the Mishnah Torah. And he wrote it in order. He planned it all out and he wrote it. In the middle, he got to Hilchos Shemitah and Yovel. He writes, in this year, I'm up to this part of Mishnah Torah, and it's been so many years since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. So here in the Isuri Bia, which he assumes you've read before you get to Hilchos Malachim, he describes certain halachas that apply to Gerim who come from different groups. You're familiar with what 4 groups do we have to know if they have special Gerim? They're either Stam Gerim from all the nations, or they're Moavim, Ammonim, Mitzrim, or Edomim. That's an afkamina. You have to know what kind of goyim you have here. Kol hagoyim kulam kishiyiskayru v'kablu kol mitzvah shel Torah va'avadim kishiyishtachru, or you have avadim. That means avadim kananim. People were born non-Jewish who became subservient to the Jews. Harein ki Yisrael l'chol davar. Good. That's an important thing. You have a ger. He's a Jew, and he continues. Kishe Allah Sancherev Melech Ashur. We mentioned him before. The Assyrian emperor. He exiled the 10 tribes. That's not the only peoples he exiled. Also goyim. Bilbil kol umos ve'irveim zebezeh veheglo samim komam. Mixed them all up, took them away from their places. Ve'elu ha-mitzriyim shebe'eretz Mitzrayim ata anoshim acherim heim. The Egyptians who are now, Rambam lived in Egypt, in Fustat, near Cairo. So it says these Egyptians, these aren't the Egyptians, okay? They're different people. If you go to Stay Edom, that's the area southeast of the land of Israel, that's where Edomim classically live. Even the Edomim aren't the Edomim anymore. The whole arba umos ha'asur mechol umos ha'olam she'mutarim. The 4 umos, Edom, Ammon, Moab, and Mitzrayim, have been mixed up among all the other nations that we don't have special, for which there's no special halachas. Hutar akol. You don't have to have this whole din of Amoni and Moavi lo yavo bakal at all, and Mitzri and Edomi have to wait 4 generations. By the way, the first one who converts is 4th generation. Shakol aporish mehen leiskayer has kasus or pirish bin arov. Chazaka, we do not know who Bnei Edom are. Rambam said very clearly, Bnei Amalek are a specific group among Bnei Edom. So here the Rambam's telling you, you want to look for Goyim. By the way, why do we call them Evet Kanani? Evet Kanani is any Goy who is Turk. Why do they call Kanani? Apparently it's a sensitivity. If we'd say Evet Goy, so it doesn't sound so nice, we're calling someone who's technically a Jew, who's had Mila and Tvila, calling him a Goy. And also their Goyim would get upset. Every time, Rabbi Bar-Hayim points this out, you find in your Gemaras or in your Sifrei Halacha, it says Akum. The Rashi tables Akum, the censor put that in there. It used to say Goy, okay? Gentile. Akum is a little bit nicer term, means there's good Goyim who we could handle, and there's the Akum, the ones who still worship stars and constellations. So that's censored text. So here you see that everybody's the same, and I highlighted this one. It's in bold. Lefichach kishe yisgayer hager bizman hazeh b'chol makom bein Edomi, bein Mitzri, bein Amoi, bein Moavi, bein Kushi, bein Shar Umos, echad hazacharim ve'echad hakevos mutar levol b'alkohol miyad. We don't give them special status. Every convert to Judaism from the Goyim is the same. So the Rambam's made it very clear in Hilchos Yisur Bia, you're not going to tell ever since first Beis Hamikdash times which Goyim there are. So this mitzvah, apparently, the actual B'chias Amalek, take it and destroy this specific group among Bnei Esav, has been an impossibility. Just like you have Gerim, and by the way, we've had Gerim come from all these places. We don't worry about it. So I wrote here also, Ammon and Moab show up in Hilchos Malachim. Just like suddenly the Rambam said Canaanim and Amalekim again, Ammon and Moab show up again in Hilchos Malachim. Even though the Rambam said you can't find Ammon and Moab anymore, he still mentions them, Nafka Min Halacha in Hilchos Malachim. What? Making peace with the Goyim. But by the way, making peace is not what they consider nowadays in Eretz Yisrael. Making peace where Jews give over precious land and resources and even their lives so that Goyim won't threaten them. That's not peace. Peace is you surround the Goyim and you dictate the terms to them that they'll pay taxes and they don't get to vote and they have to do what the Yidden say, and especially the Jewish king, the Davidian king, and they're allowed to live. That's what peace is. That's a bris shalom. That's also what Yeshua offered the people. So it says here, making peace. It says if you make peace, v'im lo ishlimu or hishlimu v'lo kiblu sheva mitzvahs. They accept the peace conditions, or they say we'll have peace, but we just won't keep the sheva mitzvahs. You gotta kill them. Or in cause zachar magdolim. You kill all the adult males in battle, but you can take the women and children as slaves. That's for Goyim. And then it says b'med dvar mamurim v'milchemes harishus. Say it's a milchemes rishus. That's an optional war where the king asks the Sanhedrin and the Navi for permission to make war. But if it's the milchemes mitzvah, which is the milchema, like Rambam says, getting rid of Amalek, we're fighting the Knaanim. Sha'al al shiva amim Amalek shelo ishlimu ein manichem mehem nishama. Mashma that, by the way, even Amalekim can accept peace treaties. If there were Amalekim who did such a thing, we could have let them live if they accept the Sheva mitzvahs. So that's against Rashi. Rashi says there's no peace even with Canaan and Amalekim. You have to get rid of all of them. The Rambam points it out. Says here you got to kill all of them, even the women and the children. Good. And it says Ammon and Moab ain't sholchem lahem l'shalom. Also, you can't offer peace to Ammon and Moab. Excuse me, Rambam. Why are you mentioning Ammon and Moab in Hilchos Malachim? And why are you mentioning again Amalek and Canaanim? V'nafka mina lahalacha. If you already told us they're not there, because the Rambam brings the din. This is the din Torah. It so happens since Sancherev you can't tell a difference. So this is yet another interesting idea that it's difficult to say this brisker diuk. We basically shown three places in the Rambam where the Rambam does not allow for this brisker diuk that Amalek could be someone else nowadays, at least literally speaking. And there's Rabbi Rabinovich held like this, his Kuni and the Mechilta, who just read this pasuk differently because we have to talk about who's a Baal Kriya here. We have to talk a little diktuk and Kriya. If you read Parshas Zachor, there's the trop here basically says the two things Amalek did bad to us. The esnach is at the word Yageya. Esnach means halfway through the pasuk. Two things Amalek did wrong. What did he do wrong? Asher korcha b'derech v'ayzanebecha k'mal nechashim macharecha v'ata yif Yageya esnach v'lo yorei elokim. And also he has no yiras shamayim. So there's two things Amalek did wrong. They read this as Lo Yorei Elokim was you. Am Yisrael was not fearing God. How do they read it? Asher karcha baderech vayazanei v'chol kol nechashalim acharecha esnach ve'ata yefi ageya v'lo yorei Elokim. And you were yefi ageya, you were tired and weak, and you also didn't fear God. So the pasuk, I guess, if I'd lean it, I'd say Asher karcha baderech. That's not the trop there. Vayazanei v'chol kol nechashalim acharecha esnach ve'ata yefi ageya. And you were weak and tired, v'lo yorei Elokim, and you also didn't fear God. So this shot of the Rabbi Rabinovich and the Chizkuni and the Mechilta just happens not to fit our trop Masor. But then again, there are places that Chazal mentioned already in Shas, where there's room for different trop altogether. It changes the meaning of the pasuk. La'alos ner tamid. How do they read it in shul? Did you have a Baal Kriya say La'alos ner tamid? If you read it La'alos ner tamid, there's no such thing as a ner tamid. We have in the shul a ner tamid, but that's a Yiddishism. It's halos ner tamid. The tamid modifies the halah, the lighting the candle, not the ner. Okay, so I asked this question. So therefore, is Amalek still around today? So I'll read you something we have here in English. There is a lesson here that although the actual biblical commandments concerning Amalek can no longer be fulfilled, so why do we have Zachor? Chazal realized that the lessons of those commandments must always be learned. And they saw in Haman and all our subsequent oppressors a tinge of Amalek's eternal hatred. It is true to a certain extent, Rabbi Soloveitchik is saying. There's, of course, Amalek. Right? Isn't that what Amalek stands for? So, yes, the halacha, we can't apply it. We can't go and say, I will wipe out these people. I have to remember these people specifically. I can't point the finger at them. Okay? But Chazal came up with this takana, by the way. Takana of reading Zachor is from when? Apparently, time of the Tanoim, the Zugos, early Second Temple times, when already, this was hundreds of years after Sancheriv already made this a technical issue that we can't do any of these mitzvahs. Why? Because they rise up against us. And you'll see that also there on the sheet. So what does it have to do with the Beis HaMikdash? They asked this question. We're in the Arba Parshios, right? Arba Parshios, the first one tells you, give your money toward the Beis HaMikdash, correct? Parah, we just read, tells us purify because you have to get ready for Korban Pesach. HaChodesh tells you get ready for Pesach. So seasonal mitzvahs. Zachor is thrown in there. You could say, well, it's almost Purim. Fine. So they found the time. It's a little bit weak. So the answer is that first we have to neutralize the enemy. We have a physical threat to our existence. Even if there's no Amalek, you could say, if I was around the time of Shaul Melech, so Shmuel Navi says, Shaul, you're the first real king we've had. So call Mar Hashem. That's what it says. Manus lahem melech. You have to appoint a king, get rid of Amalek, build a Beis HaMikdash. So we have a king. You've already won your independence. Now you have to get rid of Amalek. So we're not going to go looking for Amalek, but you just should know. Perhaps I'm just saying. Perhaps Am Yisrael cannot live peacefully in its own land as a nation because even if there is no real Amalek, there's others who are definitely trying to do Amalek's job. Even if we are lacking Amalek, we are at no loss at finding people who would love to take Amalek's place, correct? There's always people. So in that sense, the brisker, we could all be briskers. There are people like them. I don't even know if Haman necessarily, by the way, it's Haman HaAgagi. Based on what we've said here, if Sancheriv mixed up all the Goyim 150 years before Haman, what does Agagi mean? Agagi means the Shkatz, Agagi. It's like where we have that also in Tanakh, where we give a guy a name that's obviously not his name, but that's what we call him. Well, it's not in Tanakh. Antiochus Epimanes is what the Jews called him in Greek. That means Meshugana. His name was Epiphanes. He called himself the Magnificent. Who's the first oppressor of the Jewish people after the death of Yeshua and Shoftim? King of Aram Naharaim. It rhymes. Kushan Rishasayim. Rishasayim. What's Rishasayim mean? It means double bad, double Risha. Okay, like Haman of Russia. That's obviously a name the Jews gave him as a shtach. Okay, it's not just a nickname. It's a gnai. Okay, you could call your friend. I'm sure there are many people in this neighborhood called Yoeli. That's not a gnai. That's a shevach, right? But to call someone, Rishasayim or Epimanes, that's an insult. Okay, so the Jews do this. So we have to have a yearly announcement, just as part of Shkolim. Don't forget, give your Beis HaMikdash. They're trying to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. They're trying to destroy Am Yisrael. That's how it works out. You look in the Psukim, also, this is for Bali Kriya, we go to source Gimel over here. Masai limchos es Amalek. When you got to get rid of Amalek. So the pasuk says here, this is the beginning of Re'eh. It says, "Va'avartem es hagarden, v'shaftem ba'aretz, asher Hashem Elokechem manchil eschem, v'iniach lachem mikol evechem yisaviv, v'shaftem betach." Once you heiniach Hashem yisaviv, they'll give you rest all about, and you'll dwell comfortably. And it says, "V'yamakom asher yivchar Hashem Elokechem bo l'shakein shmosham shama taviu." Then you go look for the place Hashem will choose. You have to go look for the Beis Hamikdash once everything is calmed down. And it says also at the end of not Re'eh, but the next parsha, Kisei say, same term, Hashem will give you rest all around. And menucha v'nachala, by the way, they say this menucha v'nachala is a reference to Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim and in Shilo. Timche zecher Amalek. Time comes, so both the Beis Hamikdash, Binyan Beis Hamikdash, and getting rid of Amalek are once you achieve this peace. Wait a second. You're telling me I've achieved peace from my enemies all around. Now start another war? I would hope that part of achieving the peace is getting rid of Amalek. We'll deal with this question. And it says about David HaMelech. What happened with David HaMelech? And that's what David HaMelech suggested to Nasan and Navi. Let's build the Beis Hamikdash. That was David HaMelech's Chiddush, which is, by the way, a big Chiddush, because up until then, it was good enough for Shmuel Navi that the Mishkan was existing. At least it was a Nov and Givon. It was still the Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu built it. It was his own Matzah Yadav. And they did all the mitzvahs in Givon. What was the problem? No one ever had a Havamina. Perhaps Hashem wants more. And it turns out, like the Rambam says, really, they should have known that. They should have figured it out from the beginning, just like they made an upgrade in Shilo. They built permanent walls, but they kept the roof was still just a Mishkan, is temporary. Maybe Hashem wanted the next stage to even make the roof permanent. That was what David HaMelech realized. Okay, so we're gonna have to say that Amalek is something else entirely. Okay, what is Amalek? Amalek is, of course, a concept. According to the way Rashi reads these psukim, you're going to see that Rashi, the great Rashi, set up Amalek as a conceptual idea. What does he say here? It says, Asher korcha b'derech. We know what it says in Bishalach. What does it say? Vayavo Amalek vayilachem Yisrael b'Refidim. Where was Refidim? It says that they were already in Refidim. Look in this pasuk here. What was Am Yisrael's travels? Balkriya, someone tell me, where did Am Yisrael go in Parshas Bishalach before they got to Har Sinai? It says here that Vayisu kol adas b'Yisrael b'Marsin l'masiyim al pi Hashem v'achnu b'Refidim. Well, yeah, they were Refidim. Ma'am lishkosa am. So they don't have this. So where were Moshe Rabbeinu told? Hinani omeid lefanecha shama latzur b'chorev. Go to Chorev. Where's Chorev? That's Har Sinai's area. Means go ahead to the next stop and do the water. That's where you're going to strike the rock and bring out water. So he fed them. He gave them to drink water from this rock. It says, Vayavomalek vayelachim Yisrael b'Refidim. Wait a minute. Amalek attacked the Jews who were still in Refidim, the stragglers. All the rest of the Jews have already mostly gotten there. That's why Moshe said, Yoshua, say hilachim b'Amalek, b'char lanu anashim. Go find some people. You have to go back. Say, go back a little bit and catch up. He's gotten the necha sheli macharecha.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and then it says, and that's why it says kol. That's why it says when they got to Har Sinai, the parsha of Yisro obviously is out of order because it says he's already Har Elohim. B'chodesh hashlishi l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'Yitzrayim v'yom hazeh bo b'Bar Sinai. Means they all got to Har Sinai because they were a little bit frightened. It says vayisu me'Refidim v'yavo midbar Sinai. Okay, v'yachanu b'midbar. So Am Yisrael getting to Midbar Sinai actually was a few stages. The ones who were Rizrizim and needed water, they got there first. And the Nechas Shalom stayed in Refidim where we're slowly behind. And it's not like there's just a line, like you've now crossed the line here, like you know exactly where certain street is. So Amalek obviously attacked the stragglers. That's what Nechas Shalom means. So Rashi could have just said, look what's him and Bishalach, he could in this pshat, but Rashi here is going in a medrash. He's giving you an idea. He says, Lashon Mikra. You guys know this Rashi. You guys learn Rashi. Davar acher l'shon keri. Okay, it says Mikra. Maybe just stumble upon you. No, l'shon keri v'tuma shehaya mitam mishkav Zachor. The contaminated mishkav Zachor. I don't want to say these terrible things, but this is the hallmark of those people who stand up for destroying Klal Yisrael and be against everything that's Torah. So for them, mishkav Zachor is a mitzvah. And if you know the surrounding society, okay, you know who we're talking about. Okay, so that's the first thing Rashi says. We don't need to say this. The war is war. Mishkav Zachor, where does it come in here and carry and tuma? No, they contaminate you. Amalek can either contaminate you and wield sword, or Amalek can get in your head and put in all the worst ideas in your head. There's so many bad ideas. Avodah Zarah is, like the Rambam says, one of the worst ideas you could have. There's a creator to this world. To take that idea away from people and to give them an atheistic world, or a world where there's all these gods who have the same Yetzer Haras as people, that is a crime. Okay, that's a crime against humanity. Even Goyim shouldn't be worshiping Avodah Zarah. Even Goyim should know about Hashem. Rashi continues, Vayazanev Bicha. So there's other shots. You could just stick with Unkelus. Say he attacked you from behind. Makas Zanav Chotech Milos V'Zorik Klape Malo. It's bad enough if you won a war, you killed someone. You don't go over to a body and desecrate it. You know, most Goyim don't do such a thing. But who would do such a thing? Take off someone's bris milah. Zorik Klape Malo. Okay, but there is a group nowadays. I'm horrified to find out here in America that the same Amalekites who are trying to contaminate everybody, including Yidden, with this idea of Mishkav Zachor and everything related to it, are also now involved in this type of thing, literally. You know that there are hospitals where they do this now. They're saying it's a mitzvah to do this to people. It's a mitzvah. Somehow or other, you could turn a Zachor into an Akeva by doing this. That is Amalek's idea, according to Rashi. Amalek believes in this. We don't need to go into this any further. So Amalek is an idea. And you look further in the Amalek, that Rashi brings, Timches Zecher Amalek, he brings, like it says in the Medrash, what Shmuel Navi told Shaul Melech. You have to get rid of even their animals. So that someone says this was an animal that belonged to the Amalekim. Funny thing is that the Rambam says you don't have to. You could take Rambam Paskins, you could take the spoils of Canaanim, you could take spoils and animals from the Amalek. This was a Hora'as Sha'ah just to Shmuel, just from Shmuel to Shaul Melech. It was a special test of Shaul. Like we said before, David HaMelech did the same thing. David HaMelech took spoils from Amalek and is praised for it. Why? David HaMelech wasn't given that test. Shaul was on a much higher level, a bigger tzaddik, so he was given a bigger test and more to do. And even Shmuel Navi had nothing wrong to say about Shaul Melech. It was only when Hashem told him, I've regretted making Shaul king, you have to give him some musr, that Shmuel Navi was aware that Shaul did something wrong. The fact that they captured Agag just to publicly execute him wasn't seen by anybody, including Navi, as a bad thing. We're gonna do the biggest Mechias Amalek ever. And just to take a few animals, not even as spoils necessarily, but to bring as a korban. David HaMelech took him as spoils, his own property, and gave it to other people. This is going to make a korban. Why is that anything wrong? That's also a form of lachrim la'Hashem. Lachrim la'Hashem. What's a cherem for Hashem normally in the Torah? If I say this is cherem, what does that mean? It means korban. It means it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. Yeah. So 100%. Shaul Melech did nothing wrong that any person alive, even King Shmuel Navi, could have said he did wrong. Hashem is very exacting, and this was a Rasha. Okay, so we do this. So it says here, we continue. It's duplicated on my thing. We'll skip that until I have over here. So, what do you notice? Rashi told us that Amalek is an ideological battle. Amalek comes and tries to not just. Rashi doesn't say he attacked you with sword and fought you. He says Amalek is the influence of Mishkav Zachor and attacking people's bris milah. Very strange. Why? Because if you look in Parshas Kiseitze, Parshas Kiseitze, how does it start? Someone give me the puzzle. What's Kiseitze l'milchama oivecha? How many times have we found an expression like that in Kiseitze and Re'eh and in Kisavo? There's a few halachas. Kiseitze l'milchama oivecha is a few times in those parshas. It's talking about a war, correct? Yet, when it comes to fighting Amalek, it doesn't say ki seitze le'milchama oivech, which, by the way, Rashi says is fighting the Yetzer Hara. Seitze le'milchama, the ikar milchama is fighting the Yetzer Hara, Pete Rosh. It doesn't say that with Amalek. It doesn't say fight Amalek. And matter of fact, it said fight Amalek once you've done fighting. And then attack Amalek. Isn't part of achieving peace getting rid of Amalek? It's a little bit difficult. Next, you find that in Zachor it seems to be intellectual. Why? Because you have to get rid of Amalek. What else does it tell you to do with Amalek? Lo tishkach and Zachor, which are you do with the mind. Remember Amalek, don't forget Amalek, and get rid of Amalek. Timche doesn't have that usual connotation.
It's not a war.
It's not. It doesn't seem to be a war. It doesn't seem to be a war. Otherwise, it would have said these three intellectual mitzvahs, and also would have said kiseit say like go to war against Amalek. Okay.
Timcha and Zecher is also.
Yeah.
Is also again. Is again. Zecher.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's also not a physical thing.
And not only that, Moshe Rabbeinu himself said, write this in a book. Machon Shilo door. There's an eternal battle. So what do we do about this? We're stuck with the Rambam's diuk that we see is not a diuk in the Rambam, but we're also stuck with this concept that there is an eternal Amalek. It's up here. And Amalek stands for more than just fighting you. Amalek is more than just whoever comes to attack Am Yisrael. Amalek is trying to attack the idea. So we're a little bit stuck. I want to see an answer here. Yet, like I said also, it says, Baniach Hashem Elokecha Lecha. Once you have peace all around, Amalek lived just to the south of Eretz Yisrael, by the way. Stay Amaleki is in the Negev, and Edom is bordering there. David HaMelech attacked Amalekim, who were right nearby. So what does it mean? Especially for a mitzvah you can't keep, since already second base of Mikdash times, it's a little bit difficult. So I'll give you the punchline here. Chazal said, the literal going out to war against your enemies is against the evil inclination. That's the truest enemy. How much more do we see it? The eternal command, Amalek, the one relevant until today, is the hyper-intellectual war. To root out the evil inclination, everything that stands in contrast to what Hashem really wants. Okay? So that's why it's a final war. Fighting in the Yetzer Hara. And that's what Zachor is about. Because the problem is, first, Amalek comes when you have peace. When you're about to get to the stage of Geula, the final stage, David HaMelech's last wars, the final stage before building a Beis Hamikdash is fighting this Yetzer Hara. I have no doubt that the fact that these Amaleki ideas have become so prominent here, they've infiltrated Eretz Yisrael also. In Eretz Yisrael, people are doing crazy things. And I don't think it's the fault of any government or the state. It's the fault of Am Yisrael. We can't divide ourselves, by the way. Say, oh, those are doing something. The ones who don't dress like me, the ones who even Chilonim, Chas v'Shalom. I wouldn't call every Am Yisrael's kedusha. Nafkamina, if he repents, he's 100% chayiv in all the mitzvahs, just like you and me. They're our brothers, and our brothers have been infected by something. You know, they brought in Goyish holidays like Halloween is now a thing. They're fighting this New Year's. They call it Sylvester. So now they have, and Valentine's Day, all sorts of terrible tuma has come into Eretz Yisrael. But it's because we're learning from Amalek. There's certain ideas that people would only have only because they're stuck in New York and other places. I was very happy. I drove across Brooklyn this evening on Rogers Street, and it becomes Bedford. I came from Flatbush, so Waze sent me here. It was a non-Jewish neighborhood most of the way, and then suddenly I crossed Myrtle, I think it was, and suddenly I saw Jews. Obviously Jews, and suddenly everything looks nicer. Okay, the houses look cleaner, the streets look cleaner. Suddenly, this is a Jewish place. That's good. Wherever you see Am Yisrael, it's clean. There's no crime. You know, the Am Yisrael criminals, Jewish criminals. You ever such a thing? Okay, so they come. People walk in Jerusalem. Why is it that Jerusalem at 10 o'clock at night, women and children can walk the street alone? Because nothing's going to happen. It's a Jewish place. Amalek is the exact opposite. Amalek is trying to turn you into an Amalek. Amalek is trying to get you. Just like people can, the good goyim can become Jewish and convert. That's a good thing. We have a problem also. Amalek is trying to take Jews and turn them into Amalek. That's the war we have to fight. And how do we fight this war? There's only one solution. Torah Tavlin. You have to keep the mitzvahs. I take it for as a klal that there's no such thing as telling a yid not to keep a mitzvah. And we've gotten so used to it. Unfortunately, the Dr. England, if you've heard of him, he has some also he's seen on YouTube. Dr. England says that we've been in Gullus so long that we've come up with quasi-halachic justifications for that which you see around us. It must be this way. We have to get over an essential idea, and that is we waited for Mashiach. We waited for Geula. That was important. That's a mitzvah. Someone doesn't anticipate Mashiach coming is a kofar Torah Moshe Rabbeinu. However, one thing we forgot, because nothing good happened to us for a few centuries, historically speaking. Good things can happen to Am Yisrael, even if it's not the Geula. That's what the whole Hanukkah was about. That's what happened to Yehuda Maccabi. That's what happened to Yiftach and Shimshon and all the Shoftim. We got a little bit. It is possible that we will get some avoda, the start of the building of Beis Hamikdash, a good Jewish king, like the Rambam says in the Hilchos, when he talks about the Mashiach, he also says, you know what, you get close, a good Melech can show up and do all these good things for Am Yisrael and almost get there, but fail it on the end. And that's not Mashiach. So it wasn't Mashiach, but it happens. We've forgotten this essential concept that good things can happen to Am Yisrael, historically speaking, and we can make good things happen if we keep the Torah. We should not be afraid to keep the Torah. We should not be afraid of perhaps having progress as a people. That's what I feel. And that's why also I have to give a word for my sponsor, which is my father, okay, and my wife. I have here Haggadah Pesach. Here, please pass it around or show everybody. There's copies in original Hebrew. There's more in here. And there's also Hebrew English. And this is the Haggadah you have to use if you have Korban Pesach on the table. There's room to argue, but begadol, generally speaking, this is what you're supposed to have. Why? Your old Haggadah is useless, like I told them. You sit down with Korban Pesach at the table in Yerushalayim, you can't take out your old Haggadah because it tells you to do the wrong thing. I'm not here to show you other opinions. There's Makbili put out a wonderful Haggadah, which shows you when Korban Pesach is here, do this. When it's like this, do that. But there's a little bit of a mix-up because he doesn't take out things you're not supposed to say. You can't say Halacha Ma'anya and it's full. Well, you're not allowed to invite people at the last minute to your Seder with Korban Pesach. They were Menuyim. They might not even be Tohor like you did. You can't do that. It's a Lifnei Iver. And you can't bring Korban Pesach's meat out of the room once it's already in the room where you're doing it. And other halachas. And the brachas are different. There's passages you have to say. Korech and just matzah and maror are different. So you need this, and this is to avoid confusion, just like your Haggadah. You don't want to flip back. What do I do if I have to change page? I have to take out a new Haggadah or something. I have to look up what I have to do. Just like your Haggadah is straight, just say this, tells you exactly what to do, where you do it, like the Seder. That's what I put here. So there's a little bit of room. Yes, we have the Korech of the Rambam, but it's very straightforward. And I'm putting this out because Am Yisrael needs it. This is a non-for-profit endeavor, like most things we do. Paying for these things is just to cover my costs in the printing and to, God willing, put out more books. And also, getting here is a little bit complicated. I come from Eretz Yisrael, obviously. I did come from Eretz Yisrael tonight, but I'm not here all the time. I don't live in this neighborhood. I'd love to be here again. Like I told, what's your name again? Yossi. I told Yossi. I didn't get to tell Moshe. I know Williamsburg because I used to come here for weddings. All the wedding halls are here, so I know my way from the BQE to what was it? Well. Then the other one, there's two there right next to each other. Okay, my friends got married there. I nearly got married there, but I've never been around, in where the Yidden actually, not in any base Knesset. It used to be when I had to daven and find a place to daven. I actually go to 770. Don't tell anybody. Okay, a little Chabadnik in me, but I have never had the chance to be here. So I was supposed to be posting with Lord Achsanya. I have to say, you built a Machon Torah, a place to daven, and you were nice enough to have me here. So thank you. My bracha, you should all be able to come to Eretz Yisrael. Am Yisrael should be in Eretz Yisrael. Am Yisrael should keep the Torah of Yisrael. That is our strength. And there's no other choice. Either you're going to do the mitzvahs, Hashem, what does it mean to Eved Hashem? You do what he says. I don't ask questions. I want to keep the mitzvahs. Any mitzvah comes, mitzvah bal yadacha, what the Chazal say, mitzvah bal yadacha, don't blow it. Okay? You have a chance, do the mitzvahs. We'll take some questions now. We'll stop the Zoom in a second. But it's getting late. We also have to Satmar. No, I don't think it's a liberal idea. Liberal idea means freedom of speech and religion. No, left. You mean leftist? Extreme leftist. Yeah, okay. Wokeism. Okay.
It's much more spread in the Western countries.
Yeah. Because Amalek is a grandson of Esav. Amalek is a grandson of Esav. What does it mean? Chazal, no, not Yishmael. He's a grandson of Esav. Esav represents the Western world and what used to be the Christian world. Okay, Amalek is not part of Bnei Yishmael. Amalek is not part of the Bnei Kedem. Okay, Amalek is not Paras and Madai. Amalek is part of Edom. Okay, so you're not going to find this Bnei Yishmael. Yishmael has his own problems. And by the way, like the Rambam says, Bnei Yishmael is really Yishmael and Midan and Midyan, Yishbak and Shuach, all the Bnei Keturah. Rov is Bnei Keturah, by the way. Yishmael is just their oldest brother, okay? And of Yishmael, there's 12 tribes, Kedar, Ashbel, Nevayos, the rest of them, Hadad, Tema. So Yishmael is great, God promised Avraham Avinu, I will make him, he's Zarachahu, and Bnei Keturah, but they are not going to produce an Amalek. Sometimes we could even work with them. Sometimes they have their role in this world. There's no mitzvah to fight Ishmael. There's no mitzvah to get rid of any Ishmaelites. As long as they stay on their side and we stay on our side, we can have peace. So you're not going to find this. I hope that answers questions. Why is it the Western world? Because the Western world is Edom, and one of the offshoots of Edom, the biggest offshoot of Edom is Christianity, which should be wiped out soon. I'm not talking wiping out Christians. I mean, the idea of Christianity, which is like Rambam says, inherently idolatrous, should go the way of the dodo. And just like the religion of the Ishmaelites also is not the best thing.
So Machia is something like it's wiping out an idea, not a person.
It's an intellectual battle right now.
Like
And
the mitzvah of Machia is
yeah, the mitzvah of
something like
Amalek is to put in your heart that you should just know, even they say they're kind and all that, if they're coming and telling you that I think this is something I fear, they're going to tell you your base kinesis has to have some sort of toeva inside. I was wondering, just like they're doing this to certain Jewish institutions, they're forcing the toeva into the institution. They have to have teachers to do this. It happened to a Jewish school here in Brooklyn, Mag and David. You can say, that's Syrians. They're modern Orthodox. They're not us. They're going to do it to you too. It's going to happen to a Satmar institution. They're going to make the Satmars hire some sort of kofar or worse and say they're going to have to or close the institution. It happened at the Lezhin Yeshiva. They're going to do it, and they're going to try soon. Just like in YU, what do YU do? They're this. They have good rabbanim there. You know, Rabbi Soloveitchik gave this drasha at YU in that auditorium. There, they're trying to impose it on them. Okay, he said Amalek's still around. I have a tradition from my grandfather, Rav Chaim Brisker, and lo and behold, right there on Amsterdam Avenue, that's where they're trying to do it. And the rabbanim are pulling their hair out. How is the institution going to survive? They're basically going the way of Volozhin. Rabbi Soloveitchik, by the way, was a descendant of Rav Chaim Volozhin. He met with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, I'm basically the representative of Chaim's vision and the Rav Chaim Volozhiner in this generation, and you're a direct descendant of Baal Tanya. And there was some conflict there, but now we're united. Good, he says, yeah, we're united. He says, Achdus, Rabbi Soloveitchik says the Holocaust united us. The Lubavitcher Rebbe disagreed with him. You're united because the Goyim are going to persecute you just like they're persecuting them. They see no difference. They're going to impose it. So fighting Amalek, remembering Amalek is that he's trying to do it to you. Okay, you can't escape it. Fight it, or even get away to Eretz Yisrael. Make a bastion of Torah in Eretz Yisrael, because if you don't strengthen Eretz Yisrael, where we can, unite against Amalek, then Amalek will have power even in Eretz Yisrael. That's the biggest danger. It's going to happen. So watch out. I don't know what to say. I'm also under this threat. I was afraid my father's own shul in Queens. What are they going to make him do in shul? Let's say you can't have shul anymore unless you do something. If the shul has a hole in the basement, just like this, they're going to tell you have to do God knows what. 7 years ago, I didn't know they were going to be doing these terrible things. You could only know. You could look at Rashi, but if you read Rashi, you would have seen it. Going to do. Okay. Rashi is just short of the Nevuah. The Chacham is better than a Navi. Okay, Chacham is better than Rashi is better than the Nevuah. Rashi tells you what the Navi says. He makes the Navi clear. Tells you what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. Any other question about that? This should be saying. Yeah.
Has also a whole
thing about Amalek. Yeah.
about Amalek, and also about it. If it still, it does go on. It doesn't go on. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's an
It's
idea.
still not. It doesn't come to that conclusion. It's kind of ambiguous. I think.
That's why I wanted to. Look. We could have gone through the whole. There are three mitzvahs to see. There's one negative and two positive. I just want to see that where the Rambam says explicitly not like the brisker diuk. That's all. Just to break apart the brisker diuk.
Say anywhere that it's an idea.
The Rambam's hinting at it that Rambam first says you have to keep these three mitzvahs, and you have to zecher befeh. You have to enunciate it. The whole thing, like the Vilna Gaon points out, there's no mitzvah of reading Zachor like it's different than any other Torah reading. You have a mitzvah of Zachor, and the way you accomplish that mitzvah is by reading this parsha. But in Achinami, you could have done Zachor some other way. It's like Kiddush on Shabbos. There's 6 Zachors. How you do Zachor Yom Shabbos Akadsho? Well, you get ready for Shabbos, Zachor v'Shamor, and we say Kiddush on a kos. But there are sometimes Shabbos that you can't say Kiddush. One, when do you have Kiddush Shabbos without Kiddush? Yom Kippur. So you do it. How do we accomplish the mitzvah deraisa of Zachor Yom Shabbos Akadsho on Yom Kippur without Kiddush? By saying the passage, the relevant passage, Vayachulu Shemaim v'Aretz, V'Shamru b'nei Yisrael Shabbos, in the tefillah. We don't say V'Shamru, by the way. In our Nusach Ashkenaz, in Shachris, we're already saying it. So you say Vayachulu after the Shmon Esrei, because it's not included even in the text of Shmon Esrei. But that's Kiddush. So too, you accomplish Zachor, befeh, like Chazal said in Maseches Megillah, by someone reading the Torah. But it doesn't mean this Torah reading has to be any different. The Rav already spoke about that. So yeah, we're a little bit stuck. It is an idea up here. Canaanim, you have to get out and fight, and there is an idea that you have to fight Amalek, but more so, they're saying up here that you have to remember, and that's
Even
unique.
if you're fighting with yourself, like.
Yeah,
Common.
There's no-
Actually doing.
yeah. There's no mitzvah of machias. It doesn't say about Canaanim. Zachor is a Canaanim, and Timches is a Canaanim, and Lo Tishkach is a Canaanim. It doesn't say that about Canaanim, and we have to get rid of the Canaanim also. Why does it not have 3 intellectual mitzvahs with Canaanim? But it's simple enough. You got to get rid of Canaanim. Well,
Because it's why you tell you see that they throw the Machon.
yeah.
If it's an idea, they throw the Halacha.
No.
So it means the weak ones. They fought the weak Jews. They first,
Leftovers,
Yeah.
leftovers.
yeah. In Pshat, in the Milchama,
Coming through that.
yeah, in the Milchama that actually happened, it was the Jews were slow in coming. In the eternal Drash Pshat, the eternal Drash, which is not the Pshat, it means the weaker Jews, the Jews who have not filled their minds with Torah mitzvahs, who are lack commitment only because, not because they're chas v'shalom, they don't love Hashem. It's just that they don't know any better. They're like Tinok Shenishba to a certain extent, the ones who are easy to influence. And there are a lot of Jews here. I saw someone put it in a newspaper, an idea that the Israeli government, Haredi parties want to stop no chametz in the hospitals and all that on Pesach. That should be obvious. Jewish state should not have treif, it should not have chametz, at least in their institutions. And he says, Elu ve'elu, a person who claims to be a Rav said, Israel, diversity of ideas, chametz also for some people. He said, Elu ve'elu, like some people keep the Torah, some people don't. That's not Elu ve'elu. Elu ve'elu is among the Jews who are committed to keeping the Torah. Then you have, what's this? I wanted to say, Rabbi Bar-Hayim is matir kitnios on Pesach. You've probably seen. I don't go so far for you guys. I'd say just start with gebraks. If you want to head there, you can eat gebraks. You can eat gebraks with us. Okay. Once you in Yerushalayim, maybe you could eat some rice cakes. But here, start with that. So elu ve'elu means how do I make my matzah? Because I want my matzah not to be chametz. Elu ve'elu means what is the shiur bittul, or how much time does it take to walk a mill? Because it's a machlokas rishonim. That's elu ve'elu. Elu ve'elu isn't. There's no such thing as chametz. Okay, machine. No, that's that. No, everybody eats machine matzahs, whether they like it or not. You know why? Because the whole question does machine have das? I ask you something. I couldn't bake. I haven't seen matzahs that weren't baked in an oven. Does the oven have das? Ultimately, you have to give over the matzah to a kli. The oven's a kli also. Does that kli have das? It must be. Everybody bakes matzah in the oven. There's no other way to bake a matzah. You can't bake it in the sun. It doesn't work. Okay? So the oven has das. That's the operator. So look, we already have the Litvish Rabbanim and the Yekish Rabbanim already said it's even better to eat machine matzah. People are makbid dafka machine matzah.
It sounds
Yeah. Okay. So
Little also
yeah.
said that it's 100 times worse one word Hebrew than
didn't say that.
okay, look, that's elu ve'elu. Elu ve'elu. Elu ve'elu. I just see that. It's a kasha on those people saying the machine doesn't have das, and your oven, you work the hand. I made hand matzah many years. I always make hand matzah. I only make hand matzah. I make it myself every year. And I ask, I want to have das. I know my das. So you say this kind of is das. Does your oven have das? You should ask that question. Okay. And mashma that it's okay to have machine matzah. Some machine matzahs, by the way, are cheaper. It's supposed to be lechem oni. How much does your matzah cost a pound here?
It makes you.
Now they're closing. Makes you. So it shouldn't be that way. It should be lechem oni. It should be cheaper. The matzah should cost less than bread. Matzah should cost less than chametz stick bread. And the fact is that's why I do not buy anybody's hand matzah, only because cost is a siman minei that is not lechem oni. It's not the right thing to do. If I have to buy matzah, I buy machine matzah only because of this diuk, or I just make my own.
It's also more expensive than regular.
And
matzah.
I don't know what regular is, but I do know I have not in years paid for matzah. I have not paid for matzah. I buy the flour, do it myself. Rabbi Bar-Hayim has done this.
You have an
But
oven?
I have a special mechanism that I keep for you can see it it's also on YouTube. It's very public. Rabbi Bar-Hayim does it also. We use grills. We use grills. My children made with the rabbi last year. They said, Abba, your matzah is better. Thank you. Okay. I use a very hot grill. Yes. You don't need an oven.
Outdoor.
No, indoor, but it could be outdoor. I like it indoor because I don't have a thermometer, but I know that my wife used to tell when it's hot enough that you take a little piece of paper and you touch it to the grill and it catches fire.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that was good enough.
Actually part of the grill?
It has fire underneath it. Goes on the fire. No, it could go any heat source works. It's a grill.
Yeah.
It's a grill. So we use gas. Everybody uses gas. Even the good matzah ovens now are there. Some are wood powered, but you just use gas. It looks like a thing. So we use gas. You can see that. That's for a different time. So God willing, we'll prepare some matzah. I have to get back to Israel in time to make matzah, and it comes out wonderful.
Did it start yet?
It's what?
Did it start yet?
I haven't started making matzah. I've been here since Purim. So God willing, I'll get back to Israel.
It's like the
Yeah.
pita matzah,
So
the-
no one makes pita matzahs. They're softer matzahs. However, even the best Hasidish cracker matzahs come out of the oven soft. What makes them hard is that they're so hot, and thin. They evaporate all their extra moisture right when they come out of the oven, and then they turn cracker. So the ones that my wife and I make, they are soft, and they'll stay soft for like an hour or two, unless you freeze them, because they're slightly cooked at a lower temperature than these cracker matzahs. They'll turn into stale crackers if you leave them out, or you just keep them on the grill long enough. So I like it soft because I can wrap it in that way. Also, you could do korech with it. And I've had it. We've tried with lamb. How do I keep it? The extras are freezing, or we just bake it fresh, like Chazal did.
So, right, they're pheasant.
Or on Pesach.
Yeah.
Erev Pesach, we're supposed to be doing for Pesach, so we can't wait until Erev Pesach to bake the matzahs. We bake a batch before Pesach, and the Chol Moed we bake, and sometimes on the seventh day we have extra flour.
You would sell, how much would you ask?
Well, it's my own labor, but I don't have a factory for it. If I could streamline the process, I would try to cheapen it for people, or just teach people how to do it. Chazal assumed, even until Shulchan Aruch times, the women are at home making matzahs. It's the women's job to bake the bread. The women make the matzahs. That's how it always was. Machine matzahs, by the way, where did they get the idea? It wasn't a Yid who invented the machine. The Goyim invented cracker machines in the early 1800s. Okay, hardtack. Hardtack is the basic crackers they were making for soldiers and sailors to take on long trips. So we just repurposed those cracker machines that the Goyim made for matzah. The chiddush is that the Goyim just used dough. They would leaven the dough. They would let it rise or whatever it is, and then they roll it out into the machine. The Jews just put the dough into the machine, mamish, right away, so it's unleavened. That's the only difference. Okay, it's basic. Any cracker machine can make matzah if you put the dough into the machine right when it's fresh.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.